We move now forward to the first panel discussions of the day, where leading experts and practitioners will share insights on critical themes shaping the water and sustainability agenda. Our first panel is titled Shaping the Future of Water Security and the Larger Sustainability Picture. Implications for food systems, economies, and societies. This important conversation will be moderated by Mr. Abdulaziz Shehhi, researcher and deputy head of the research sector at Trans Research and Advisory. Please join me in welcoming Abdulaziz and our distinguished panelists.
Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to welcome you to this important panel on shaping the future of water security. Today, we gather to discuss an issue that is not only about access to a basic resource, but about the very foundation of our societies, economies, and also stability. Water security is often framed as an environmental or technical matter, but in reality, it is much more than that. It is about ensuring that our food systems remain resilient, that our economies can thrive, and that our societies remain stable in the face of growing global pressures. From agriculture to industry to migration and geopolitics, water is woven into every aspect of our shared future. The risks of water insecurity are immense, but so too are the opportunities for cooperation, innovation, and leadership. The decisions we make today on how we manage and secure this resource will shape not only our national priorities, but the stability and prosperity of future generations worldwide. To explore these themes, I am delighted to be joined by a distinguished panel of leaders, educators, and thinkers. His Excellency Sir Liam Fox, former UK Secretary of State for Defence, Chairman of the UK Abraham Accords Group, and author of The Coming Storm, Why Water Will Light the 21st Century. His Excellency Professor Ahmed Ali Murad, Acting Vice Chancellor of the United Arab Emirates University, and a leading figure in advancing research and innovation in the region. Ms. Aisha Al-Atiqi, Executive Director of the Mohammed bin Zayed Water Initiative, an effort that is bringing a fresh vision and global ambition to the challenge of water security. Please join me in welcoming all of our panelists. To begin, I'd like to invite each of our panelists to share their opening reflection, and then we will dive deeper into targeted questions for each guest, as our panel strategically combines different expertise to look at this critical issue from a comprehensive perspective. This question is coming from this question is for all the panelists, and is coming from a person or a researcher who is usually studying geopolitics. Like, I'm a geopoliticanist. I study strategic and hard military escalation. So please excuse my question, and I invite all of the panel to answer it as well, beginning with Sir Liam. Are we really facing a water issue? As basic as it is, we still have some people questioning it. So are we truly facing a water issue?
Well, hello, everybody, and first of all, a very big thank you to Trends for inviting me today and for providing the translation for the book and for having a conference on such an important issue. Are we facing a crisis in water? No. We're facing several crises simultaneously. We're fighting a crisis on knowledge and understanding. We're fighting a crisis on geopolitical conflict. We're fighting a crisis on waterborne diseases, and we're fighting a crisis on the climate change effects that will produce, through water, tremendous social upheaval. And the third and the fourth of these will lead us to a fifth crisis, a crisis of increased global migration. So in short, the answer is yes, but it's even more than perhaps the question suggests. So if I can very quickly just pick off those topics. The lack of understanding amongst policymakers on some of the basic science is as surprising as it is disturbing. To talk to policymakers who don't quite grasp that the water cycle that we all were taught about at school and how water couldn't be destroyed or created but could change forms is augmented by what we now know to be the deep water cycle, where water moves through the different parts of the earth and is in a constant state of flux. The fact that only 3% of all the water in the world is fresh water, and of that 3%, 2.15% is locked up in either the Antarctic and the Arctic ice or in the global glaciers, leaving only 0.3 to 0.5% of all the water in the world to be fresh water available for human consumption. And when you take that with the massive increase in global population, it took us 200,000 years as a species to reach 1 billion people. It has taken us 200 years to get from 1 billion to 8 billion. And put in context, that means that the increase in the human stress of the human population by 2050 will be 378% more than 1950. That gives us an idea within our own timeframes of the size of the problem. There are 17 nations now in high water stress status. 12 of them are in the Middle East and North African region. So this conference couldn't be more well timed. Now, we're entering a new phase in geopolitics because we're moving to the phase of recognizing that countries can be defined as upstream powers or downstream countries. We've seen the first really clear example of this with the Grand Renaissance Dam, where you now have Ethiopia as the upstream power. Not that they have any obvious malign intent, but they have nonetheless the power to control the flow of the Nile to Sudan and to Egypt. That case has not gone unnoticed in other places. We see the tensions over the Tigris-Euphrates system, over the Jordan River Basin, and the place where the Grand Renaissance Dam example was most noticed was in Beijing. Why? Because 42% of all the people on our planet, 42% of all human beings get their drinking water or agricultural water from a river that arises on the Tibetan plateau. The Indus, Ganges, Brahmaputra, Mekong, Yellow, Yangtze. China controls the headwaters of every one of those rivers. There are 58,000 major dams in the world. 28,000 of those are in China. And when you think of the fact that you have that tension over water and that 3 of the participants are nuclear powers, you can think of some of the risks that would come with that. And in a previous book, I published the fact that one of the criteria of Pakistan to use a tactical nuclear weapon would be the damming or the diversion of the Indus. And just a few weeks ago, we came perilously close to that particular situation. Now, one of the reasons that I wrote my book was I'm a doctor by profession. I was a doctor before I became a politician. As my wife said, when you had a real job. And one of the things that I find really shocking is that here we are in 2025, and 3.5 million people of our fellow human beings die every year from waterborne diseases. And 2.2 million of those are children. Now that you may think is a big number, but it generally doesn't mean anything to people. So what that means is People dying of waterborne diseases are the equivalent of 3 9/11s every single day, or 6 Titanic sinkings every single day, or for those of you who are football fans, filling Wembley Stadium's 90,000 seats every 10 days. That's the number of people who are dying. When you think about it in human terms, it gives you an idea of just how appalling it is. I think that one of the most basic human rights, if not the most basic human right, is our access to clean water. And yet, we discussed the United Nations in the previous session, access to clean water is number 6 on the UN's Sustainable Development Goals. Why, I've always wondered, is it not number 1? If your basic human right is not access to the one thing you require to live, what can it possibly be? And finally, I wanted to just touch on the part that really shocked me when I was talking to British political policymakers, because one of them said to me, Liam, I'm not very sure that I buy this rise in the ocean levels being due to climate change because not enough ice has melted for that to happen. And, you know, I sat with a look of horror on my face and I said, did you do physics at school? Do you understand about the expansion of water as it heats up? And I said, only half of the rise in the water levels can be accounted for by melting ice. Half is about thermal expansion of water. And in the next decade and beyond, more than half of it will be taken up by thermal expansion of water because of the heat in the atmosphere that already exists. Even if we were to solve the climate change issue tomorrow, we've still got at least another 20, 25 centimeters of water level rising that we cannot now avoid. That is the scale of the problem that we face. We are also poisoning our water at an appalling rate. Between 15 and 50 trillion pieces of plastic are now out there in our oceans. And congratulations, human race, we've actually managed to get microplastics for the first time in the snow of Antarctica. It's now managed to get everywhere. And only 5 nations are responsible for more than 50% of all the plastic going into our oceans, and we need to take international measures on that. And finally, the most frightening thing of all is that if we allow this to continue, we don't actually understand in the thermohaline circulation that keeps our oceans moving, that regulates our climate. We do not understand what will happen if we get an interruption of that because of the change in the water and salinity that we have today. We could be on the verge of something that is not just catastrophic, but irreversibly catastrophic. And you put all of these issues together, you look at all the instability that this causes, and you can see how this could cause the one thing that everybody in politics wants to seem to avoid these days, which is the threat of mass global migration. Well, let me tell you, we are creating the recipe for mass global migration. There are solutions to our problems, but unless we understand the magnitude of the problem and the urgency of the problem, then we will not get our political leaders to act quickly enough to be able to stave off what could be for the next generation a fairly catastrophic picture.
Well, that's quite a well-structured answer, Sir Liam Fox. I mean, if you're still not buying, dear audience, if you're still not buying that we are actually truly facing a water security issue, then luckily we still have 2 panelists, 2 different perspectives. I'm definitely buying it. The statistics you've mentioned, our access to 0.3 to 0.5 of the fresh water on the planet is actually a scary thing to think about. Leave alone that 42% of the water gets their water needs from the same delta rivers, and one state that controls all of that. But from a scientific perspective, maybe Professor Ahmed Murad could convince us more, are we really facing a water issue?
Thank you very much, Abdulaziz. I am pleased to participate in this special panel Why this panel is special? Because the moderator is a graduate of UAE University who graduated from the College of Humanities and Social Science, majoring in political science. So we are proud of you, Abdulaziz.
Oh, thank you, Professor.
So let me return to your question, Abdulaziz. As you know, that's at the global level, some areas have a problem related to the excessive rainfall and major flood events, while other areas, especially in arid and semi-arid region, including UAE, experience a scarcity of rainfall and groundwater resources associated with long drought periods. As we know also, the distribution of natural water is not even at the global level. Therefore, countries that located in arid and semi-arid region need to be more dependent on what? Non-conventional water resources. What is the definition of non-conventional resources or water resources? Those resources that depend on technology, such as desalinated water, seawater desalination, and reuse of treated wastewater. Therefore, arid region and semi-arid, including UAE, face natural scarcity. However, considering non-conventional water resources, as I mentioned, that's those countries depending on using the technology to generate the water, like seawater desalination and reuse of treated wastewater. UAE is mostly achieved water security. So we have an issue in water resources, imbalanced distribution between different resources, but in UAE, as an example of country that achieve water security by focusing on desalinated seawater and save and preserve conventional water resources for future generation. This is an excellent strategy to secure water for the future generation in order to continue for the prosperity of the nation and continued development of the nation.
Well, I couldn't have said it better. Well, right now we have, from a policymaker level, from an educator level, so 2 out of 3 saying we have a water issue. Professor Ahmed Murad have said geographically and statistically the evidence related to this region's water security are irrefutable. So might we try to get a consensus, 3 out of 3? Are we really facing a water issue, Ms. Aisha?
Definitely. So I think Sir Liam and Professor Ahmed made a very, very compelling argument. So my job is extremely easy now. But I don't want to sound like a broken record because I'm going to be kind of repetitive in terms of what are we really facing today. So we know when it comes to the water crisis, different parts of the world are facing water challenges differently. Either too much water, too little water, or too polluted water, and often a combination of those problems, which makes it even worse. I think the world acknowledges water scarcity, for instance, being a very regional issue. And we've known this for decades, and as mentioned today in the panel as well, we had to resort to alternative water resources to really be able to thrive and develop and meet our demands. And unfortunately, alternative water resources today are not economically viable to many of these countries that are going to face water scarcity challenges. But what we've seen and what we are seeing today, and we've seen it in the headlines, we've seen it at different events, we hear from different countries around the world that water challenges or the water crisis is no longer a regional issue, but a global one. Last week, I was in Sweden for the Stockholm World Water Week. And I was shocked to know and to hear, Sweden being known for being water abundant, So they faced, due to the high temperatures during the summer, their main source of potable water was disrupted, and the authorities had to kind of encourage both the people and the businesses to really reduce consumption. Now, people and the businesses came together and they were able to reduce their consumption by 15% in 2 weeks. So I think we know that water security can become fragile. We know the causes of it. It's the economic development, climate change, the population growth. But we also are very optimistic that when people come together, and I think when we know that the solutions exist, we know that there's the willingness to act, but it's really how can we really scale these solutions at the right time.
So, Ms. Aisha, not only that we are facing a water issue, but from a positive perspective, solutions do exist. And thank you for reassuring us. But I also noticed that you said water resources today, like water, to secure water resources today, the technologies that are existing today are not economically viable. And that's why we need more innovation, especially when it comes to facing this critical issue. So thank you for those insights. At least we reached a consensus. 3 out of 3 of our strategic panel have said we have a water security issue. But on a positive note, there are solutions, and hopefully cooperation is a solution. So thank you for this insight. Let's now go for a bit deeper dialogue with some targeted questions for each of our esteemed panelists. Sir Liam, if I may begin with you again. In your book, I'd like to argue your book a bit more. So in your book, you argue that water will define the 21st century. What parallels do you see between water security and traditional security threats from your experience? Like, I know defense security threats exist, energy security threats exist, but are they as important as water security threats?
Yes, and they're indivisible, really. So I mentioned the fact that in Tibet you've got a single water resource in effect that will provide water for over 40% of the population. If that water dries up or that water is dammed, then you've got an instant trigger for conflict. Now, it may well be that one follows the other. So, for example, how much in control of events are we on the Tibetan trigger for that? So, at the moment, the Himalayan glaciers are melting faster than any other glaciers in the world. Why? Because both China and India burn coal for fuel. And it leaves a very, very thin black film on top of the snow, so rather than reflecting energy, it absorbs energy. And what we're seeing at the moment is the effect of that. We've seen the pictures in the last few weeks of the flash floods that we've seen in India, flash floods that we've seen in Pakistan, as a result of this very rapid melting. But we will go, just think of this logically, we will go very quickly at some point from rapid melting of the glaciers to no glaciers to melt. And you will go from flood to drought in a very short transitional period. And the reason that I think matters is that the risk of mass migration of water not reaching the Mekong Valley, for example, is enormous. And the point that's just been made very eloquently, that you cannot think of water as a regional issue, is because you will have all these triggers to movement of people, very rapid movements of very large numbers of people. And that makes it not an issue of regional security, but of global security. And when you get big movements, as we have seen in recent years, you can expect a lot of political turmoil and a lot of tension between states. If I may just tell a totally unrelated, well, not totally unrelated story. In 2002, in Kenya, in a village in Kenya, reports came out that a number of people had been injured by very aggressive monkeys. The truth of the story was that the village was short of water, and they moved in trucks to provide fresh water. And while the humans were getting the water, they were attacked by the monkeys who wanted the water. And the monkeys got the water until the humans got their guns. That, in microcosm, is what will happen to the rest of us if we have to compete for water. It's the one thing that we will do whatever we have to do to get. And that is why I think more than any other resource, it is potentially a source of conflict.
But from your policy making and security background as well, Sir Liam, what do government underestimate about water? Like, on a positive point, on a policy making level as well, from your policy making expertise, can water cooperation act as a peace building tool probably?
Yes, it can. And while it's tempting to be very depressed about some of the conflicts that we see, we have seen where countries behave in a certain way that you can get agreement over water. If we think of water as a sovereign resource, i.e. it starts in our country, therefore it's ours, it's a very bad basis for agreements. If we look at how water is used, how much do we actually use in country by country as a river, for example, flows through, there we have been able to get much better agreements. So thinking of water as a shared resource and making agreements based on what we actually use is a good recipe for going forward, but saying this river starts in my country, therefore it's mine, and we have a right to stop the flow to anyone else is a very bad way of trying to get agreement. There's not sufficient law around, there's not sufficient agreement. We have legal agreements, but they are not particularly well adhered to, or people don't actually sign up to them. There are a number of them. We've got the 1960 Indus River Commission, which has worked well between India and Pakistan to talk about water flows, to talk about agreements, and to give predictions of water. And then we've got others. The 1997, I have to read this, Convention on the Law of Non-Navigational Uses of International Watercourses, because I don't really remember that very well. 100 countries came together to agree it. How many have ratified it? 33.
Yeah.
So coming to an agreement, finding a common way forward is one thing, but putting in place the treaty arrangements to make it work is another.
Yes, definitely. Professor Ahmed, turning to the academic research and education perspective again, how can universities contribute to advancing water security solutions?
Thank you for this important question. I think universities and academic institutions can play a major role in achieving water security. But how can we achieve the water security through the academic education and university? So university can achieve that through different angles, including research, education, innovation, and community engagement. Now, if we look to the research, for example, at the UAE University, water resources or water research in general is considered one of the research priorities of the university that align with the national priorities of UAE in general. We conducted intensive study when we identify our goals for the next few years that align with the strategic cycle 2023 to 2026, and we found that water is across all national priorities. For that reason, based on the strength of the university, it has been identified as a research area. Our faculty members conducted interdisciplinary research in groundwater management, climate action, adaptation, desalination, treated wastewater. And that's led to innovate. We found today, I think, at this exhibition, maybe number of patents related to the desalination, to the wastewater presented by our undergraduate and graduate students. This is one angle. Another angle, which is education and building capacity. Any academic institutions offer academic programs. At UAE University, I am sorry always saying UAE University because I am giving you example of my institution and how we align ourselves with the national priority and how we address the water issues from different angles. We have different academic programs that aligned or that offer research topics related to the water. For example, we have Master of Sustainability and Environment that offer by College of Science. One of the important topic in this program is offering courses related to the sustainability of water resources, also addressing agriculture issue, and so on. Now, we have another program, dedicated program that contribute to the advance of the knowledge related to the water, which is Master of Water Resources that offered again by the College of the Engineering. Now, if we look to the education also in another aspect, we introduce between time and time topics related to the water to our curriculum in order to increase the awareness of the important issues related to the nation. Nowadays at the UAE University, we have a special center that address all issues related to the water, and we have a special programs dedicated to our undergraduate students. We started this program 2022, and so far I think we able, to fund more than 200 research projects that came from our students, and the outcomes of what we see in the exhibition are the outcomes of them from those research projects. Community engagement. UAE University play a major role, I think, in increasing the awareness of the important issues related to the water by conducting seminars, awareness session in collaboration with different entities in the UAE. We'll continue, I think, to revise our strategy in order, I think, to align the mission, especially of the university, to address issues related to the water. We have strength in water resources at the UAE University. We have more than 60 faculty members from different colleges addressing issues related to the water. And I believe this is a wealth. We need to invest in them. We allocated we allocated a huge budget in order, I think, to address related to the water issues.
Well, thank you, Professor. Definitely the contribution of universities and educational places such as UAEU to finding solutions of water scarcity cannot be undermined. And of course, you mentioned cooperation with different entities in the UAE, along which, if you allow me to say, a couple of research on water that has been worked on by UAEU in combination and cooperation with different research centers and think tanks, which is important to focus research, as you said, toward water security in particular, among of which a couple of research that have been in cooperation from UAEU with Trans Research and Advisory as well. And of course, as I said, the role of education, the role of higher education, the role of research, and even basic education cannot be undermined, especially when it comes to facing this issue of water security. But do you see potential, Professor Ahmed, in regional academic collaboration on water research, like how other regions share expertise in energy and in health? Could we share knowledge when it comes to water? Do you see a benefit in that?
As we heard, I think, from the panelists and the previous opening session, water security in general or water issues are regional and global issue. It's not limited to a certain region, no, but it is a global. All countries, I believe all countries in the world facing water issues, but the water issues different from one region to another. As we mentioned that semi and arid region has or face natural water scarcity, where others, I think, facing a problem due to the excessive use of water for other purposes. Collaboration is one of the important tools, I think, to address the water issue globally. Without collaboration, we cannot achieve and we cannot get advantage. At UAE University, we are collaborating with more than 5,700 academic institutions from different parts of the world. And when I say this number, I meant effective partnership. What do we mean by effective partnership? Effective partnership, that means there is contact between institution in terms of the research, in terms of student engagement in taking part of the research activities. And that's reflected in what? In the outcomes of those research. Nowadays, UAE University generated more than 29,000 research papers according to the Scopus. And this is when we compare this amount of publication within the UAE, it accounts 30% of the publication in UAE. And that's in different areas. And by the way, sustainability and water issues has a high percentage from this number of the publication. And that reflects how we are collaborating with other entities to have innovative solution to the water issues. Now, I think most of what we are presenting here, we have international collaboration. We able, I think, during 3-5 years to intensify or to increase our network. Last 2 years, we used to have about 4,500 collaborators. Today, but according to the latest statistics, we have more than 5,700 academic institutions from different parts of the water. We launched several research projects with the major universities from different parts of the world. We have, I think, with the University of Malaya, we have with the University of Miguel, we have with the number of universities in the USA, and we, I think, also we able to go to Africa. Now we have a special program, dedicated program for Africa. We have SDG research program that focusing in agriculture and water issues in Ethiopia and Senegal. And we are, I think, nowadays we are preparing to go to also to Asia, to Uzbekistan. And same concepts, we apply it in different countries. And that's indicate how we share the knowledge, how we contribute to the development. And we found collaboration is one of the important tools, I think, to elevate the outcomes of any challenges related to the science.
Thank you, Professor Ahmed, for a more than comprehensive answer to my question. And now we move to Ms. Aisha from the work of the Mohammed bin Zayed Water Initiative. Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Water Initiative. Ms. Aisha, the Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Water Initiative is a fresh approach to this issue in particular. How does it aim to accelerate global water solutions?
Thank you, Abdulaziz. So the organization is quite young. We were launched last year, but we do have a big ambition. So our vision is quite simple. A world where water is more accessible, affordable, and sustainable. We're a new organization, but we're part of the UAE's effort to address global water scarcity. And the way we want to achieve this is through 3 main strategic pillars. The first being accelerating innovation. And as you already know, the water sector has been quite stagnant. We don't see the same technological breakthroughs that we see in the energy sector and other sectors. If we look at just renewable energy, the cost in terms of how renewable energy was one of the most expensive energy resources, today becoming the most cheapest energy resources. That's a transformation. If we look at the development of AI from kind of academic research to an actual daily reality, we want to see that same leap when it comes to water. So the organization is really focused on how can we accelerate technological breakthroughs that make water more accessible, how can we unlock new solutions, but also how can we break economic barriers of existing solutions to make them more economically viable to low and middle income countries. Our second pillar is focused on empowering action. How do we then, after reaching those solutions and identifying them or unlocking them, accelerating them, how can we then ensure that these solutions are deployed around the world where they're most needed and that these solutions are scaled up at the right pace? Our final function and pillar, I would say, is probably one of the most important ones as well, because we touched on a few of these points, really raising awareness on water scarcity. Unfortunately, water scarcity does not receive the same level of attention or investment that other crises or global concerns receive. If we compare it to climate change and others, usually water does not receive the right level of attention and investment. So how can we channel and elevate its importance on the global agenda and channel the right investments towards addressing those challenges? So one of our main projects that we've launched when we launched the organization is our partnership with the X Prize Foundation in launching humanity's largest ever prize, X Prize Water Scarcity. It is an investment of $150 million made by the initiative. The prize purse alone is $119 million. The main objective of this competition is to break the economic barrier of desalination to make it more affordable. Now, Sir Tom mentioned something that I always find very important to always reiterate. Freshwater resources are extremely limited. The whole world is competing over those freshwater resources. And if we continue to compete, that just means escalation, means impact on human life, food security, etc. So tapping into alternative water resources is going to be required for the global water demand to be met. So, but as I mentioned, those solutions are not economically viable, especially desalination and even water reuse as well. So how can we really ensure that the future, many of these vulnerable water-scarce communities around the world can actually tap into the water abundance in the ocean using these solutions and technologies? Now, that they're not the only solutions, obviously, but they're definitely proven to be one of the most successful solutions that the world can address the challenges that we have today. We also recently launched a new competition called Al Miyah Challenge, which is around, and it's going to be a series of different challenges to address different water concerns. Our first one was focused on water for agriculture, because you're very aware that 70% of the global water consumption goes to agriculture. So if we can help reduce water consumption for agriculture, we can really help address the challenges there. So in terms of innovation and technology, we really want to ensure that we help and move the needle in ensuring that there are future promising solutions to help the world meet its water demand. So that's in terms of our innovation projects. But we also want to ensure that we have the right partnership, as mentioned today in the panel as well by Professor Ahmed, that we know as an organization, as a country, no one can do this alone. We need the right partnerships. We need the right global cooperation that's going to really help move the needle globally on this. There's one statistic, or not one statistic, but I feel like science has really backed how connected we are globally when it comes to water scarcity, so the hydrological cycle. So we see that what happens in one country directly impacts what happens in another country. So if you remove trees in one country, you immediately impact rainfall in another country. That itself really shows how important global cooperation is going to be to really help address this. And I think one more important component is really looking at the water challenge, not from a water perspective, water sector perspective, because it crosses all sectors. So how do we attract the financial world? How do we make water attractive to them? How do we bring in the diplomatic and the politicians as well? Because as we've seen, water conflicts are increasing, water mediation is going to be necessary. How do we also ensure that the other sectors, both energy, food, health, are also very well represented when it comes to addressing this challenge? Because the solutions might not always necessarily come from the sector, but it's that cross-sectoral kind of collaboration that's going to find the right solutions to address this challenge.
I 100% agree with that. But to try to put some scale on that, so the World Bank have said that just to stand still with the population that we expect, we would require another 65 desalination plants, the size of the largest one in Saudi Arabia, just for us to be able to deal with the population growth that we've got in the present time. And the World Bank also did work on how much would it cost to actually give everybody in the world access to clean water. And the answer is, it sounds really frightening. So they said it would take $150 billion a year for 10 years to make that happen. And it sounds like a huge amount, 150 billion. But ladies, we spend 107 billion a year on cosmetics. And for everyone else, we spend 1,069 billion on alcohol globally. So we could give everybody in the world access to clean water and sanitation for 1/10 of the world's annual bar bill. It's just worth trying to put that in perspective when we're trying to get a message across to a public who will need to back these changes.
Definitely.
But also to try, as has just been said, to try to find a way of making these projects attractive to business and to investment, to provide the income. We know how to do it, and we know how much it would cost.
Yep.
It's simply a matter of having the will to do it.
Yes, definitely. And I think a common point of what Ms. Aisha said and also Sir Liam said is that right now the solutions for water desalination are not economically feasible, but if you want to attack the issue, and like one of the major systems that are affecting the issue is global warming. And an amazing fact that you mentioned, Ms. Aisha, is that green energy, which contributes to less climate change, which will ultimately contribute to better water situation in the world, has moved from the world's most expensive energy source to the world's most cheap energy source. And that's remarkable to think about. But let me ask you this, and I'll promise I'll try to make us go faster after this. Water security is often viewed as a distant problem, as a technical problem. So how can initiatives like yours make it more human, make it more urgent? Because it doesn't get the attention it should or it deserves.
Thanks, Abdulaziz. Great question, because we do need to make water more human to really address this challenge and make it more inclusive, that it's not just a technical issue that requires our engineers to really come and find the right solutions, but we need a broad set of skills to really come together and really address this challenge. Now, when we look at the competitions and prizes, we really strongly believe that they're a very strong model to really accelerate innovation and find the right solutions. But we've also seen that they really bring in together thinkers that come from different backgrounds. So from the two competitions that we have currently active, we've attracted over 1,500 teams from more than 86 countries, and all come from different backgrounds. Some have water backgrounds, some don't have water backgrounds. So that might be a solution or a material scientist that came up with something in the space sector that then has that impact on the water sector. And then you can see that happen, that involvement happen across different sectors when they come together. So really, because the humans are generally kind of curious and creative, how do you tap into that? When they can see a challenge, they want to come together to address that challenge. But we need to create the right partnerships to allow for that. So we need the governments to set the policies, the accountability to really help scale up solutions. We need the private sector to really accelerate infrastructure and speed and innovation. We need the financial sector and the philanthropic sector to really bring in that patient capital to help us de-risk and make the sector more attractive. And then we need the innovators, the ones that can really think outside the box, that can come and try to find different ways to look at addressing this challenge, and most importantly, the community. And when we also think about the community, it's also about youth. How do we empower youth so that they are very well educated about this challenge, that they're empowered to really kind of contribute and play an integral part in addressing this challenge? And how do we make it attractive to youth from different backgrounds? So how do we encourage our international studies students to come in and address water? How do we attract our artists to come in and really help us with the narrative setting and the storytelling of this? How do we bring in the economics and business background students also to come in and help look at this challenge differently? So really, what we need to do is really look beyond just the water sector and bring in all the different stakeholders together. And that's something we work on at the Mohammed bin Zayed Water Initiative.
I can't agree more. It's something that everyone has an important role to play in facing this critical issue. We've heard powerful points from each and every one of our special esteemed panelists individually. Ladies and gentlemen, as we bring this important discussion to a close, a few key messages stand out clearly. First, water security is not a single issue. It is the foundation of food systems, economic growth, social stability, and even global peace. It is truly at the heart of sustainable development. Second, we've heard today that solutions requires a combination of approaches, policy leadership, cutting-edge research, innovation, and strong partnership that bridges government, academia, philanthropy, and the private sector as well. And finally, while the risks of water insecurity are real and urgent, the opportunities are equally as powerful. With foresight, collaboration, and commitment, water can become a force for cooperation, resilience, and shared prosperity. I want to sincerely thank our distinguished panelists, His Excellency Sir Liam Fox, His Excellency Professor Ahmed Ali Murad, and Ms. Aisha Al-Atiqi for sharing their valuable insights, and all of you as well for being a part of this conversation. The future of water security will define much of the 21st century. What we choose to do now together will shape that future. Thank you.
Thank you.